All right, guys. I think we are live. Let me know, and I gotta fix the screen. Let me know if the audio is coming in. I believe it. Well, now let's try. I think the audio should be coming in now. Let me know if it's too loud, too quiet. If you can't hear me, let me know. If you can, maybe let me know. There should be a chat. I believe you guys have access to the chat. I'm not the best streamer, so setting this stuff up is actually something kind of new for me. But really appreciate you guys being here, coming here, taking a little bit of time out of your day to look at what I've been building, which I think is hopefully, I think it's pretty cool. Hopefully you guys think it's pretty, sounds good. Okay, perfect. Um, and I think I can get to the chat. Da, da, da. All right, that'll have to do. I can't see your comment. I can only see half half your name, Damien. I think that's you probably. Just kind of how I have it set up. But really appreciate you guys taking some time. This will only be max 30 minutes. I could probably sit here talking about this for 2 hours. I'm limiting myself to 30 minutes. You can hear me well. Perfect. And I wonder if I can bump this out. Oh, there we go. Can hear you well. Perfect. Awesome. So maybe I should have hid this from the screen first. Actually, maybe I'll do that. Just because there's a lot on that screen. The plan for today, to be honest, I didn't sit here and script this out or anything like that. It's really just, hey, I kind of been working on this tool for quantitative risk assessments or running like fair models and that kind of stuff. And I've been working on it for quite a while and gotten some outside feedback, but I really just kind of wanted to open it up to whoever was interested, so you can take a look at it and tell me what you think. Hopefully you think it's cool. If not, let me know why not, and that'd be awesome. But really, I didn't set out to build this tool either. I was kind of looking for something like this, right? Where you can basically a tool for running fair models that's not, I'm a one-person company, that's not some massive kind of SaaS platform, that wants six-figure contracts to run these. And I'd actually started going down this journey, gosh, maybe a year ago. Some of you might be familiar. I have some fair tools in Power BI. So Power BI is like a dashboarding software, right, from Microsoft. The challenge is when you run fair, right, you're running essentially Monte Carlo simulations, and you can't really do that in Power BI. So I have one tool that uses a Python library that you have to install locally, and there's all those dependencies and all that kind of stuff on downloading Python, installing the library and all that just to get it to run and generate a dashboard. Then Microsoft added Python to Excel, which was interesting. So I built another fair tool that utilized that. I don't love how that worked, but it worked a lot better. And so those were kind of my first attempts at that. And so finally I started saying, I just need to build like a desktop application or a script or something like that. And it kind of evolved into this, right? But I couldn't find a similar tool, right? I kind of found two extremes, right? The first is, all right, well, I can write my own Python, library or my own R code to do that, which is what I usually do. There's the large platforms, and then there's some other tools. There's like some, like a Fair U Excel tool, which is pretty cool. But it kind of, you're running a single scenario. It didn't have a lot of the features and stuff that I was looking for. And I was just kind of looking for a straightforward, simple tool. I don't need to, go buy a whole platform. I'm one person. So that's kind of how this tool came to be. And I think it's in an interesting place where if you're just getting started with kind of using FAIR or running quantitative risk assessments, it's a pretty good tool to be able to do that, right? We don't need to go do some whole deployment piece. It's also really useful if you're a really advanced user because the tool is designed for an analyst to use. It's designed for flexibility where, hey, I want to be able to utilize the FAIR model and analyze whatever you want to analyze, kind of in whatever way, report on it in any way. It's really good and flexible in that sense. And it's also designed for the output to be external, right? My biggest complaint, I've spent the past, 3-4 years working a lot in reporting in cybersecurity. So both with internal teams, with security consulting firms, with managed security service providers on reporting. And a lot of, security tools in my experience think that somehow the data is going to live in their dashboard and in their tool and it doesn't need to go anywhere else. Well, 80% of the time we need to rip off the data, take screenshots out of tools and put them in reports, put them in emails, put them in PowerPoint presentations, right? A lot of times the reporting is outside of, or pipe it into dashboards, right, and databases. So we have to get the data out of there. So it's designed, everything can be essentially exported or reports generated. Everything's editable. This is really a tool for the analyst to generate a different output, whether it's a report, an Excel workbook, export the data as CSV, whatever it is, right? Get images or screenshots you can use in whatever, but the consumer is not going to be using this tool. The other quick important thing before I start hopping in and showing you guys, also, if you have any questions or anything, throw them in the chat and I'll try to read it as I go along, or anything. So feel free to stop me, right? Because I can rant on this tool. But the other piece that's important is this is totally local, right? So there is no cloud infrastructure. There is like a licensing server that it has to reach, and a download server so that we can serve automated updates and you don't need to go download it. That's the only external services. All the data is local. All your data is local. With that said, it is still built to be able to kind of share and work in a larger risk team than just one analyst, which I'll show you in a bit. So with that, that's kind of my how I got here background of the tool. But let's take a look at it. Hopefully this is big enough for you. It's tiny on my little OBS screen over here. I'm assuming it's a lot bigger for you guys. And so hopefully the resolution and stuff is coming in okay. There's a lot to this tool and I haven't given a ton of demos, so we'll see how well I do. This is the application. So I have it open on my computer. It's totally local. There's 3 tabs. Most of the work you'll be doing here is in the scenarios tab, which is what I'm in. And I apologize if you're not super familiar with FAIR. I won't be able to do a ton of background on how that works in this demo. But this is where we define our scenarios, right? Our loss event scenarios or our risk scenarios. We can see a list. I have 15 loaded here that are just kind of random scenarios, to be honest. Enterprise ransomware outbreak, CVE exploitation. You could be as specific or not, right? There's kind of some guidance around FAIR on being super specific on your scenarios. But we have them all loaded in. I can see the severity, which is actually based off of your risk appetite. So I'll touch on that in a little bit. I can see the loss event frequency, single loss, the annual loss expectancy, and then the P90. So that's the tail there. It's broken up. So this is our list. Down here is what I call the results pane. Right now we're looking at all scenarios. So I can look at the different statistics. So I can see the expected annual loss, P50, P90, 95, P95, which is also known as the value at risk, the 99th, the max simulated, which I don't know if that's that useful, right? Because that's Monte Carlo simulation. So it could be all over the place, but I'll at least report that. Are these numbers based on some prior analysis database or we need to fill? This is just kind of the simulating piece, right? So I'll show you how you create a scenario here in a bit. But yeah, so you're basically filling out the FAIR model, whether you get that from calibrated expert estimates, right? Or you're getting that from maybe you have a source, there's other sources out there. You could look at your actual data, right, to do some of that. But this is really giving you a tool to do the analysis. We're not necessarily getting you the data, plugging into your tools. I think there's some problems with that methodology in a sense, right? Where I know that's where some folks are going, right? As well, let's just plug in all your tools. But you have a lot of gaps there and a lot of stuff that's not scoped correctly. I don't know how I feel about that approach personally. Is there an ability to link in a data set or a table of assets? Hold on, I need to get a notebook here. I've been playing with that, not yet. So at the current state I have this in, there's not. But that is something that I've been playing with, right? Is like, maybe I have I go pull some data from our sim tool, right, on how often a certain event occurred over the past, I don't know, 1-2 years, something like that, right? And then can we plug it in and automatically kind of derive a distribution for the threat event, right? Or maybe it's the loss event. So yeah, I would love to hear. I'll reach out or shoot me a note on LinkedIn. I'd love to learn more about exactly table of assets. That is also something. So I don't have, and I'll touch on this in a bit at the end, right? Is where is this going? I don't have controls in here necessarily. This is really just looking at scenarios currently. But that's kind of why I opened this up, right? Is because I kind of need some feedback on where to take this. Table of assets. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So those are things I've been thinking about, aren't in there yet. But we get the stats. In this case, we're looking at all scenarios. So it'll actually break it down by each scenario. I can click on these and this will scope the results to this specific scenario. So I can look at the stats here. And it'll give me the stats for pretty much every factor, depending how far down we go. Looking at a single scenario, we get some information. Here's the risk appetite. There is a taxonomy view, right, where we can look at, this one was modeled all the way down. We can model it just at the loss event frequency and the magnitude, right? Here's the stats page that I showed you. We have the loss exceedance curve. You got your histogram of values. And then I'll also surface, this is the raw Monte Carlo draws. So anyone who's not familiar with Monte Carlo, right, you're basically just kind of pulling from a hat. In this case, we're doing it 250,000 times, I believe, or this one was simulated 100,000, looks like. But we'll give you the raw simulation runs for all of them. And you can actually export all of this. So I could dump the whole Monte Carlo simulation to CSV. I could export actually the histogram as CSV or an image, same with the loss exceedance curve, etc. So I can export those raw results here. I also can organize all these scenarios. So you have like I don't know what you call this, right? But kind of like your file system organization. So I could create a new folder. I'll just name it stream. I could drag this into this folder. I could duplicate, scenarios, etc. So I could organize this in any way I want. The other thing I'll notice, there's another kind of boundary called a workspace. So right now I'm in Acme where everything's kind of bounded, right? So if you're a consultant, I could create workspaces for each client. The important thing with the workspace is the scenarios don't know anything about the other scenarios. So I'll show you that, talk about that in a bit. There's another concept I want to touch on called portfolios. So PCI scope, and this just, to be honest, has random scenarios in it. What the portfolio will do is it's going to simulate a group of scenarios, and a scenario can be in multiple portfolios, right? So it's just kind of naming, hey, all of these scenarios are included in PCI scope, for example, or whatever you want it to be. Maybe it's a department, maybe it's a threat type, maybe it's an asset class, who knows, right? But what's important about the portfolios is it's actually simulating it together, right? And what I mean by that is if we just take the results of each scenario and kind of sum them together, like the raw stats, that's not quite accurate, right? Because some years we might have, multiple incidents, other years might be better. So it's actually summing all of the scenarios at each individual draw, right? And then drawing the stats. But we can look at a portfolio, we can look at the stats across that whole portfolio. Same thing, loss exceedance, histogram. We can export all the simulations. And then we can look at the contributors. So who is contributing the most to the actual risk of that portfolio. So you can include them in multiple, but that's kind of the portfolio concept. I'm realizing 30 minutes might not be enough, so we'll see. Let me show you, let's create a new scenario. So this is kind of how you create a scenario to go all the way back to answering someone's question about, do you need to fill it in? You give it a name, you can choose the folder, you also don't have to, and you can drag and drop stuff around folders. You can put a stakeholder. This is a description of the actual scenario, right? Because you maybe don't want the whole scenario as the name, just if it's super long, but this will give you the scenario. You can tag, so this is just a normal tag. I'll just tag it stream. You can do multiple tags, so stream 2 or 23, I guess, can't type. And that'll let you filter, sort, etc. by tags. The risk appetite, so this is what the severity is going to be labeled against. In the settings, you can set a workspace default, or I can do a custom, right? So it's basically creating bounds on what you're rating it against, on what's low, moderate, high, or critical. The reason being you might have kind of a general, but it's usually kind of specific to the scenario. So you can define that there on how that's rated, or just kind of inherit the default. You can include it in a portfolio off the bat. Of course, you can add that later as well. And then we go ahead and do our modeling, right? So we'll start off with loss magnitude, loss event frequency. We'll do PERT, for example, and we can model it. It'll give us a little preview of what that distribution looks like, just so we can kind of understand. But there's different distributions you can choose from. If there's a distribution here that you would like to use that's not here, let me know and I will implement it. Same thing here, we can choose all kinds of different distributions. The other thing, we can decompose it, right? So maybe we actually want to model it at the threat event frequency in the vulnerability, or maybe we want to derive vulnerability from threat capability and resistance strength. I'll decompose this down as well. We can do it by the different forms. So our primary loss or our secondary loss, same thing. So we can get pretty deep, or we can estimate it all the way at the top, right? So you'll create your distributions, and then you'll just add the scenario. The other thing that's important that I wanted to make sure I included is you can add notes on each of these items. And why is that important? Because, excuse my language here, but where the hell did all these numbers come from, right? So what was this derived from? How did you get it? And that's tied there. You can view it later. I think that's really important when doing a fair analysis or quantitative risk assessment. Is what are our assumptions? What's the source kind of this data? Where did we get it? How confident are we on it? And your confidence will sort of also show up in the distribution, right? How much range is there? But that's, I think, is really important. So we can add these analyst notes on pretty much every item. You also can, I ran into the issue, I was making one and then I was filling out some of it. I didn't have all the information, and I didn't have a draft system. So I implemented a draft system where we can save that draft. It will show up here. It will not be included in simulation runs, reports. If I go to all scenarios, it won't show up there until it's a live kind of scenario. So that's that page. We can also create portfolios. So similar thing here, I can include the different scenarios I want in there. I could search by tags. So if I had tagged everything based off of a department, I could just create a portfolio based off that tag, for example, and then simulate it and get results across that portfolio scope. Now, the other thing that I think is really cool, maybe it's not that useful, is when I'm creating a scenario, there's this link option. And this lets me link components, which are on this page. I only have one component here. But the idea of a component is we're predefining a piece of the FAIR kind of model, right? So maybe in this case, it's a loss event frequency, maybe it's a vulnerability, maybe it's a loss magnitude. But basically, there's some sort of piece that we want to reuse or potentially reuse across multiple scenarios, right? Maybe we pulled it from a report, right? Scientia Institute's got like their IVRS reports, has some cool kind of data for that, right? Maybe it's something we pulled from our own internal data of tracking, incidents and threats and stuff like that. But we want to be able to reuse it. So we can define it here. So in this case, I could create a new component and you can see, right, maybe we want to estimate the loss magnitude. This is pulled from some sort of report, right, or something like that. When I go here to create a scenario, I can actually use that in, oh, did I get rid of my component here? Let's create a new one. And we'll just make it a loss magnitude. Oh yeah, I need a name. Stream. There we go. So it's actually linked to this component, right? I could add this scenario. Now, I could add this component and use this component in multiple different scenarios. So I don't have to sit there and, oh, I got to look up what's my, loss magnitude for this specific type of event, if we're reusing it. The cool thing about the components, though, is if I edit a component, it'll actually edit every scenario that component's used in. So it's either good or bad, right? Depending on how you use it. But then if we update that component, that update will essentially propagate right throughout all the scenarios and ultimately all the portfolios that include those scenarios. So we can edit that place once. Sometimes you'll want to use that, sometimes you won't. But that's pretty useful, I think, especially as the amount of scenarios you have grow and you go, okay, well, if we change this, where else do we need to change it? We can just change the component instead. So that's kind of that piece there. The other thing is reports. So I don't have it set up to show you the reports. These all do export. Maybe I'll do another stream or some other way or start posting sample reports. I think I posted one on my LinkedIn, so you can go and look that. But we can export, right? I showed you in the results pane. I could save this loss exceedance curve as an image, throw it in my PowerPoint presentation. But there's a lot of what I would call kind of boilerplate reporting and stuff. It's not intended to be used as is, but it is like a narrative report, or some of these are Excel workbooks. But it is like an analyst narrative report that will export, but it's designed for you to be able to edit it and use it and change it. It's not necessarily meant to be, here's our report with, our logo on it kind of thing, like I've seen in some security products where I'm like, I just want to edit it. All of this will either export as an Excel workbook that you can edit or a Word document that you can edit. But it's kind of the boilerplate, like let's get it on paper, kind of do the heavy lifting, and then you review it, tailor it to your audience, add in your recommendations. We're not going to auto do recommendations or stuff like that. But the kind of raw analysis, let's just get you a boilerplate. If there's another type of report you're interested in, let me know and I will implement it probably, or maybe not, but let me know. But there's a single scenario risk report. So this is a report on just a single scenario. There's also a workbook version. There's a portfolio risk report, so that'll look across a portfolio. There is a treatment comparison report. So if I select multiple here, I can select this, and I can actually compare against multiple scenarios. So if I maybe created 3 scenarios, one is the baseline, the other 2 are different treatment options, maybe with different controls or cyber insurance. I can compare the risk reduction or I guess increase across those, and you select which one is the baseline and which one are the options. The other thing I'm looking at adding is, well, let's create an ROI report, right, where we define the cost of controls and assign controls to stuff. So that's kind of coming down the pipeline. And I could generate that. There's an executive summary that's more concise across a group. A risk register export. So this will export all of them as like a single line per scenario, right? With some of its stats. Even with the single scenario risk report, I can actually generate multiple at one time, right? So I could select a whole folder too. Let's get rid of this, get rid of that. So maybe I want to create single risk reports. This will actually generate 3 different reports, 1 report per scenario in here in Word docs that we can edit. So really everything's designed around, let's give you the tools to model things in the way that you want, build the scenarios the way you want, and then build out reports that you can edit, right? Data is not stuck in here. This is really just kind of a tool in your tool belt. So I'll stop there. That's kind of the core features I have now. There's some stuff we missed. There's some stuff in the settings here, etc. But I hope, let me know if you think this is cool. Either drop it in the comments, send me an email, comment on my LinkedIn, send me a LinkedIn DM. Curious, is this cool? Is this useful? Is there anything out there like this? Am I totally missing the point here? Or what, right? So would love to know what you guys think. Kind of wanted to get it in front of people and show it and kind of get some initial feedback. But this is kind of the tool I was looking for, right? A simple way to run fair models without writing my own code, spending $100,000 on some platform, $100,000 that I don't have, or some kind of Excel workbook that kind of works, kind of doesn't, in my opinion. So I'd love to know what else is useful. Where should this go? The next kind of things I'm adding is controls, ROI reports. How do we start enabling you to add in some of your own data, right? Maybe we have lists of different event frequencies. Do you have some documentation? I do. I don't think it's quite published. I think I'm finishing that up today or tomorrow. So I will have full documentation about this. Yeah. Okay, cool. That's good feedback. That's good feedback. If you have the stuff that's missing, that's what I'm most interested in as well, is, wow, this would be really cool if only it could do this, or if only it could do that. Or this is really what I need to use it for. So ultimately, building it for you guys. But yeah, there will be documentation. I will be also recording a full kind of walkthrough demo, or maybe it'll need to be a series of videos on how to use the tool and all that kind of stuff. So I'll be posting all that as well. And then the ultimate goal is to get this in people's hands pretty soon. So I think it's at a place where I could give it to someone and be like, yeah, this works. Right? It's not ultimately where it'll end up, but it's good enough that it works for kind of the use case. So that's really the goal in the next couple of weeks, is to start getting it out in the world and get in people's hands. So yeah. Well, I can't believe that's already 30 minutes. Y'all have listened to me rant for 30 whole minutes. But yeah, appreciate it. I'll hang out maybe another 30 seconds in case anyone else has some feedback or thoughts. But I really appreciate you guys taking the time. And hopefully, if you're interested, let me know, and I'll figure out how to get in your hands. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Take care. Oh, hold up. And how about the financial data? Do you have some kind of form to get this in order? I do. Thanks for, yeah, of course, Damien. To quickly answer, there's a couple, it kind of depends on how you're modeling, right? So this is based off the, let me look at off the fair model, right? So we're looking at the actual financial piece, right? You're basically estimating the forms of losses. So if I do a new scenario, I could either look at it across the whole loss magnitude. So this is essentially, what does this cost us? What does this cost us when we have a loss event, right? So how often do we have a loss event? If we do, how much does it cost? You can decompose it into primary and secondary. So primary being this loss happens when the actual loss event occurs. The secondary, which we could include, being this sometimes happens, right? So regulatory fines or consumer reputation. But there's different forms of loss and fair. So productivity, response, replacement, fines and judgments, competitive advantage loss, or reputation. So some of this, it really depends on how you get it, right? And it depends on how deep you want to investigate, what sources of data you have available. Maybe your organization has historical data available, so you can get kind of a sense. Sometimes you really can't, right? So sometimes there's industry sources, depending on what you're modeling. So ransomware costs based off of our size of organization. You can get some data there from the Verizon reports or some other reporting out there. The other thing you can do is what's called an expert or calibrated estimate. And basically what you're doing is saying, and really the goal here is to capture your uncertainty, right? So if we're using a PERT distribution, we're saying, well, it's not going to be less than this, and it's definitely not going to be more than this, and it's probably here, right? And that's going to determine the distribution. Yeah, you could be that. You may have historical data in your organization, right? If you've had similar events happen in the past and you kind of know what they cost. Yeah. But that's the biggest problem. Or not nearly a problem, but that's the hardest part, right? Is getting the data. And so a lot of it's estimation. But the thing with fair and quantitative risk analysis to remember that I think is you're quantifying your uncertainty. And what I mean by that is we might not have a really good idea, but you could probably tell me, well, it probably won't cost me more than this, and it probably wouldn't cost me less than this. And so you're capturing your uncertainty. It might be a huge range, right? We might say this could cost us anywhere from $5 to $5 million. And that's valid, right? Because that represents kind of our scope of knowledge about what this event would cost. And when we're running the analysis, it's taking that into consideration, right? And your results are going to be quite large, right? So then we say at the end, this risk could be anywhere from here to here, probably somewhere in here. But that range, and that's why we use distributions, is to capture that uncertainty. So the smaller your range, the more certain we are. The larger it is, the more uncertain we are. But we're still capturing and presenting that uncertainty. And then stakeholders can take that into account as well when they're making decisions. So we're predicting the future here, right? So we'll never know everything. The question is, how sure are we and how not sure are we? And what are the possible outcomes that we think it could be within? And then that'll help us make better risk decisions, help us validate and create ROI, be able to invest in the right controls, focus on the right things. But capturing that uncertainty is important. And in a lot of cases, we're going to be quite uncertain. And I think that's okay. But this at least lets us communicate that. So that's my thoughts on that. But anyways, I think that'll be the end of it, unless someone sneaks another question in. Thanks for the demo, of course. And You guys know where to find me. Look out. I'll be posting a lot more stuff. This is kind of the first time I've showed it off at all. So expect to see a lot more coming around this. Appreciate it, guys.